Last week, Manheim released used car data for the used car market, and things are looking pretty damn good. According to Manheim, used vehicle value index fell to 197.3, which is a decline of 12.1% from a year ago. And from April to May, the Manheim used vehicle value index fell by 1.2%. You can even see here from the graph that the vehicle data is at the lowest level that we've seen in a number of years, which is obviously excellent news, and this most recent drop is a substantial one. The 3-year-old index, which is an index of 3-year-old cars, which is a valuable metric to look at in the used car market because 3-year-old cars is a car that is frequently entering the car market as people trade in their old cars and they upgrade to new ones. Well, the 3-year-old index declined by 2%, which was actually 0.5% more than what we saw from this exact same time of year between 2014 and 2019. So in relation to pre-pandemic levels, this is actually a larger than average decline, which is again good news. MMR retention, which is a metric that gives us an idea of how cars are selling relative to their MMR value. So are cars selling for a discount, or are car sellers jacking up the prices like what we saw in 2021 and 2022? An MMR retention of 100 means that a car is selling for its MMR value, so its true price. There's not a discount, but it's also not upcharged either. If it is below 100, it means that the car is selling for below its MMR value, which means that there was some sort of discount put into place. Maybe a discount, an incentive, the seller had to lower the price, things like that. While the MMR retention for the month of May was at 98.8%, which means that cars were selling for a discount. Not a huge one, but this is still notable because a discount nonetheless is a good thing. And on top of this, the daily sales conversion rate was at 56.4%, which is a decline from the month of April, but it's also higher than what we saw the last 2 years, the same time of year. So demand is favoring the car buyer, but not as much as it was, say, in 2023 or in 2022. Now, I mentioned a moment ago that the used car market has fallen by 12.1% in the last year. But how do individual vehicle segments fare compared to this overall market? Well, let's take a look. Pickup trucks have fallen the least at 11.2%. Not only have they fallen the least, but they're actually falling at a below average rate, which is good news for pickup trucks when it comes to holding their value. Surprisingly enough, luxury cars hold the number 2 spot. They've fallen by 11.4%. Which is still quite a bit lower than other segments of vehicles, and it's also lower than the average car market. SUVs and crossovers have fallen by 13.2%, which is above the average car market declines. And mid-size cars and compact cars have fallen a surprising 16.3% and 17.4%, which is not only quite a bit more than other segments of vehicles, but it's also quite a bit more than the average car market, which means that these segments of vehicles are falling faster than normal. Not necessarily a good thing for people who've purchased these types of cars in the last year. Now, when we look at electric vehicles and non-EVs overall are falling less than the average car market at 11.6%, while EVs have fallen by 16% in the last year, which is quite a bit higher than the average car, but still lower than, say, a mid-size car or a compact car. But even within these individual vehicle segments, not all cars are depreciating or appreciating at the same rate, and there are very specific winners and losers in this current car market. So in order to get a good gauge of which cars are the winners and which ones are the losers, let's head over to Car Guru's Used Vehicle Value Index, which gives us a great gauge of which used cars are actually being listed for in this current market. So looking at Car Guru's, we ended up filtering out the data to show us roughly the last year, from June 7th, 2023 to June 8th, 2024. And you can see that this graph, for the most part, has pretty sharp declines. From last June all the way until February of this year, the car market had been steadily declining month over month and week after week. But in recent months, the car market has had a bit of a shift, and we've even seen in some cases vehicle appreciation. You can see that the car market decline slowed down quite a bit in the spring of this year. And as we headed into the end of spring and early summer to where we are now, the car market has actually increased in some cases and has sort of flatlined. And you can see that the car market is basically flat from like mid-May until present day. Looking at the individual vehicle segments, while the majority of vehicles have still depreciated in the last 30 days, you can see that virtually all of the vehicles have actually appreciated in the last 90 days, with the exception of vans. Keep in mind, this is not a minivan, so not like the normal type of van you'd get for you and your family. This is more targeted towards cargo vans. But if we head down to makes, we can see how individual manufacturers are faring, and you can kind of see that it's a bit of a mixed bag. There are some vehicles that have depreciated, some that have appreciated, but one thing is pretty common across these vehicle makes, and that is that there isn't really huge swings in either direction for any specific make or model. The car with the largest depreciation is Fisker, which really comes as no surprise given the fact that this brand has been tanking short term. Other than Fisker, brands like Fiat have fallen by 1.42%, Alfa Romeo has fallen by 1.37%, Scion has fallen by 1.72%, but there isn't any other example of a car that has fallen by more than 2%, which is actually quite rare in this car market over the last couple of years. On the flip side, you can see that the same thing rings true with appreciation. There really isn't a car that has appreciated by a ton. You can see that Dodge has weirdly enough appreciated by 0.94%, BMW by 0.68%, Acura by 0.76%, and if you believe it, Tesla by just under 1%. But for the most part, there really isn't a vehicle make or model that has appreciated much more than 2% or depreciated by much more than 2%, which tells me that at least short term, the car market is sort of flatlining. Now, I talked about this in a recent video that I made breaking down the quarterly report from Experian and what Experian showed in their quarterly report that was in Q1 of 2024, even though car prices technically went down a little bit, the monthly car payment for cars went up a little bit because of the fact that interest rates are still very high. And ultimately, the consensus of that Experian report was that the car market is sort of at a standstill. It's not really swinging in either direction in this current market in June of 2024. And I would say that when looking at Car Guru's Used Vehicle Value Index, the same exact thing rings true. While the Manheim Used Vehicle Value Index continues to fall, and this is absolutely a good thing, we're not seeing these month-by-month declines whenever it comes to the consumer level and the cars that we can actually buy from dealerships. And this conclusion really rings true even whenever you begin to look at other third-party selling websites like cars.com, for example. You aren't going to see the major swings that we saw last year in the car market with these used vehicle listings. For example, we have this 2020 Mercedes-Benz AMG GLC 63 base 4MATIC, which has 39,760 miles, and it's listed for just under 57 grand. While this car is considered to be a great deal per cars.com standards, you can also see that this car has been listed for over a month and it's only seen $500 in price declines. Another great example is this 2021 BMW X5, which is listed for just under 39 grand and has just under 40,000 miles. This car has been listed for 80 days, and while $2,700 in total price reductions is a lot of money, it's not as much as we would have seen this time last year for the same duration of listing. This 2021 Toyota RAV4 Hybrid, which has 24,208 miles and is listed for just under 34 grand. This car has been listed for 45 days and has only been reduced in price by $400. This 2023 Chevy Bolt, which has 20,269 miles and it's listed for $18,489. This car has been listed for 49 days and it's only been reduced in price by $1,900. Or this 2020 Toyota 86 GT, which has 36,841 miles and is listed for just under 27 grand. This car has been listed for a whopping 94 days and has only seen $2,000 in price reductions. And for those of you watching this video, you may look at this data and think, well, $2,500 in price reductions, $2,000, that's a lot of money. And while it is a lot of money, I think that we should be seeing more given the fact that these cars are sitting unsold for potentially months at a time. And while I do think that the days of seeing $7,000, $10,000, $15,000 in price reductions like what we saw in 2023, those days are probably over, given the fact that these price reductions are already built into the price at the point of listing. I do think that if a car has been sitting for more than 3 months, we probably should see that price reduced more than 2 grand. And I think that in a pre-pandemic car market, we would have seen that this was the case. Truthfully, the only segment of cars that we are seeing these massive swings in prices is the EV lineup. You can see that with the 2022 Kia EV6, which is a car that has been depreciating quite a lot. This car has 42,870 miles and it's listed for $28,561. This car has been reduced in price by $3,435. We have another 2023 Kia EV6. This one's listed for $28,780. And it's been on sale for a whopping 266 days and has seen nearly $9,000 in total price reductions. This Model Y Long Range, which has been reduced in price by 2 grand. Or this 2023 Mercedes-Benz EQS 450 base, which is listed for just under $77,000, and in the last 10 days alone has seen $3,000 in price reductions. So don't get it twisted, vehicle prices are still lower today than they were at this time last year, and certainly lower than they were in 2022 and in 2021. But what we aren't really seeing are these massive price swings and massive price reductions like what we saw this time last year, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I do think it's something that we need to be aware of so that we can enter this car market with realistic expectations. Even whenever we look at Facebook Marketplace, which is a platform that I buy nearly all of my vehicles from, including my Tesla Model 3, which I purchased back in April, while we are seeing lower prices today than what we saw this time last year, we are still seeing higher prices than what we saw pre-pandemic. For example, we have this 2017 Toyota Yaris IA, which is listed for $7,900. This is a solid deal for a car. We have this 2013 Toyota Corolla, which has 88,000 miles. I would argue that this is a good deal for a car, but it's nothing to write home about. You have this 2012 Mazda 3 iSport for $5,750. I would argue this is a decent deal for a car, but not an incredible deal. This Mitsubishi Mirage, I am not a fan of Mirages. I wouldn't buy this car for $3,800, but it does prove that there are newer cars that you can buy for dirt cheap, though you may have to sacrifice reliability in the process. Or we have this 2013 Mercedes-Benz, which is 124,000 miles, listed for $7,900. This is overall a really clean vehicle, and truthfully, this is one that I would potentially be tempted in buying for my own Turo fleet. The point of this video is that the used car is absolutely going down, and the car market is in better shape today than it was this time last year. But if you are someone who is looking to buy a used car, don't look at price reductions as one of the key metrics in figuring out whether or not a car is a good deal. Because in this current market, the majority of cars, with the exception of EVs, aren't being reduced in price by a whole lot. Instead, I would rely on the key components that I talk about a lot in my videos. Like, which car do you want to buy? Make sure to figure out the make, trim, model, year, mileage, every feature that you want in your vehicle, and make sure to have a clear understanding of what you should expect to pay for that car. You can use resources like Car Gurus, Cars.com, or even KBB to figure that price point out. Next is be sure to negotiate not only online, but also in person. Dealership incentives absolutely are increasing, and just because car sellers aren't reducing their price online as frequently as they used to, doesn't mean they aren't willing to negotiate, because they absolutely are, and they absolutely should. And of course, pay attention to interest rates, because depending on the type of car that you buy, this is going to be a big factor when it comes to overall affordability. I've said it in a lot of my recent videos, I don't think that this current market is necessarily a bad market to buy in, but I would encourage you to wait until closer to the end of the month, because that is end of month, end of quarter, and I think that we will see the best deals, at least short term, at the end of June. Like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.